we're using Claude. We just got the enterprise license for Claude. Prior to that, we had Copilot. Now we have both. I was struggling with, how do I use AI ethically? And I think of it as AI is an assistant that I have, just like if I hired an assistant.
They are sourcing out these AI tools like Claude or anything in their system.
I really think networking is like one of the best ways to grow your knowledge and grow your career, because you never know. I got 2 of my jobs through connections. I'm not sure how that's going to work because everybody has to start somewhere, but a lot of that might be taken over by AI.
Welcome everyone to the second season of SEC Reporting Journal, brought to you by Finrep AI, purpose-built AI for financial research and reporting. Today I have with me Jamie Dordik. She has built a career at the intersection of financial integrity and organizational change. She has led reporting functions at some of the most recognized names in global business, from PepsiCo to IBM to Booking Holdings, just to name a few. And she's now bringing that depth to our audience. Really excited to have her today. Jamie, I would like you to introduce yourself, talk more about where you are right now, what current role is, how did you end up specializing in this space? Just
Sure.
anything. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have been in the business world, in the accounting space for over 28 years now. Can't believe it's gone so fast. I started in Big Four. At the time, it was Big Six, Ernst and Young, and did the typical audit route. And after about 3 years, I left to go to the New York Stock Exchange, spent a couple of years there, and then went to one of my clients who was a publicly traded smaller SEC company as their assistant controller. So that at that point in about 2005 is really what brought me into the SEC reporting world. And while I've maybe left those specific roles for other opportunities, such as working at the FASB and changing my career, my role at Booking Holdings before coming to where I am now at Payoneer. I always seem to gravitate towards coming back to SEC reporting. I think it's, my comfort. I think I excel in it. It's people assume accounting, you're sitting there and you're an Excel jockey and you're just doing numbers all day, number crunching. But in the SEC reporting space, you're really project managing financial statements for the public to absorb. You're working with all different groups across the company: legal, compliance, FP&A, operational teams. So you really get to understand what's going on in the business, because generally any big things that happen in the business have some sort of accounting impact that need to be disclosed in the SEC reports. So I think I always felt like it was a great place to be, and a little more outside of the weeds and understanding the big picture. So that's sort of why I think I kept coming back to these roles and why I'm currently in the role.
Now, someone who is like standing out in SEC usually is like, it seems like a daunting field. People don't like really approach it with that mindset that they get to know so much about a company. They usually go it with like, it's such a grind work, it's so much like hard. But I think the fact that you're saying that, yes, it has all of those aspects, but it does bring you, because it shows you much bigger side of a business than it usually would in any other role. Like, yeah.
Definitely. And going into it, I was very much like, wow, what did I get myself into? But, it's a little bit predictable every quarter, when the quarter is ending, when your financial statements are due. So whether, you're done or not, you sort of have to be done. So it's a little, for somebody who's type A like me, who kind of wants to know, okay, what days am I going to be really busy so I can plan ahead? It's a good role versus other areas that are much more fire drills come up. And don't get me wrong, fire drills come up, because I also oversee
Yes.
technical accounting, which can happen anytime during the year, and have accounting implications that we have to assess. So, but for the most part, the SEC function is I try to make it into a well-oiled machine at every company I'm at, so that it's repeatable yet interesting.
So you went from audit at EY to FASB as assistant project manager. That's not the path people usually take. So like, what pulled you towards that? Like, what was it like?
So actually, I went from Ernst and Young to the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
Um, and so what happened was this was about the time that the Enron collapse happened and Arthur Andersen sort of went out of business. And we were taking on a lot of their clients at Ernst and Young. And it was just a little bit crazy. And I said, I don't really see myself becoming a partner at Ernst and Young. I think I want to make a move. And none of the roles really excited me that I was being presented with. And somebody I had worked closely with at Ernst and Young had gone to the New York Stock Exchange in this role that was really not accounting. It was financial compliance, ensuring that publicly traded companies that were listed on the stock exchange were meeting our standards, such as having a certain market cap, having a certain share price. And when they fell below due to news that came out or bankruptcy or other transitions in the business, they would work with our team to come up with a business plan, which we would have to bring to a committee on a quarterly basis to see how they're tracking according to their plan and if they're meeting their objectives and goals. I thought it was a really interesting opportunity. It was a small group. All of us, while it was not an accounting role, we all had a big four, big six background. So I thought it was a good change out of accounting, learn a little bit about the markets. It was, down on Wall Street. I was young and it just seemed
In
like
New
a
York.
really,
Yes.
yeah, it seemed like an exciting opportunity, and it was a really great group. So I'm glad that I joined there, and I learned a lot about the markets. I met one of my closest work friends there, who's not even in any type of accounting function. So it was kind of good to get out of the the big four at that time.
So, like, trying to understand more here, having watching like the standards get built from inside at FASB, when a new ASU comes out, do you read it differently than most like preparers would, or do most people skip, like when they skip the basis of conclusions?
I guess so. Obviously, I worked at the FASB for again about 3 years. Decided I wanted to hone in a bit on my technical accounting skills that really complements the SEC reporting. In most companies, such as where I am now, the SEC reporting role is combined with a technical accounting role. Some companies they're separated, but in many companies it's one role. So you're doing the SEC reporting, but also understanding new accounting standards, what implication it has for the company, what disclosures are going to be necessary, how the accounting is going to have to be done. And being at the FASB, it really taught me a lot more about how to understand the codification, how everything is presented, when decisions are made. It goes through a whole type of, you write the standard update, but it goes through a lot of iterations through the board. And then ultimately, the standards are not prescriptive and they're not meant to be. They're meant to be, much more principles based. But when things are principles based, it's not always black and white how you apply it. So the basis for conclusion really gets into the mindset of the rulemakers as they were making the decisions, and definitely helps. So when I'm looking at a new standard, I look at the basis for conclusion. Whereas before working for the FASB, I probably would just kind of look at, what it's saying and try to interpret it myself, look at the big four guides. But I think the basis for conclusion, and also every meeting that's recorded, that's presented at the FASB, every meeting that goes to the board is recorded and available for anybody. So it's really informative to be able to try to understand what went into the decision making process, which if I did not work there, I would not even realize. It would not be on my radar.
When you move to Booking Holdings, you step from external reporting to technical accounting into a global process owner role for a contract management. What
So I did two roles there. I came in, it was SEC reporting and technical accounting, but I was definitely handling more the technical accounting. I was in that role for 2 years, and then I went to the global process owner role, which was not even in an accounting or in the accounting group.
I think you've shifted from technical and the insights roles like back and forth a lot. And this has been a pattern from your start of the career, I feel, like seeing this now. I think you have enjoyed the other side, and then you're like, oh, no, I like my technical accounting space too. So you move back, and then you're like, oh, maybe I should look into this side as well. So I think this shift throughout your career is what made you today where you are, because you're holding out on both the spaces. You understand everything from scratch, which is so exciting, because like people usually stay in one lane, especially in SEC reporting. People are very, not I would say organized, but very constricted in terms of their changing the fields a lot. So I feel like when I hear you speak, I understand that she doesn't just come from her technical accounting side, because she has had the courage to move around, and I think I really value and respect that. So thank you, like love it, lovely. Can you just like we can just like talk more about, as we are approaching the quarter, like how a typical quarter will look like from close to filing, like how it
Sure,
works.
sure. So today's the first day of, yesterday was the last day of the quarter. Today's the first day of the close period. I work very closely at my current organization with the consolidations team, who really gets, all of the numbers finalized, booked, and then gets consolidated because we have many entities, many different sets of books that need to be consolidated, intercompany eliminations need to take place, and all of that fun stuff. So that is done by another team, but we work hand in hand with them as things arise, as they're booking entries and saying, oh, we have this new contract. We recorded the revenue this way. Does this make sense? Now, hopefully that comes up before the quarter as things are getting signed, but sometimes things do fall through the cracks.
Burden, yes.
So right now, my team is sort of, waiting for the consolidations team and the controllers groups at each different, part of the process is being finalized. We are working through we built a calendar. We're, waiting for financial information. I've been at more larger companies where the books are closed within like the fifth or sixth business day. I am at much more of a smaller, almost $1 billion revenue company. So now we've updated the 10Q, rolled forward the numbers. We have a very good skeleton that doesn't have any financial information for this quarter, but things that we know about that happened during the quarter, we're building that into our footnotes or MD&A. And so we're in this period where we're just trying to have a really good starting draft, waiting for the financial information, making sure if there's any memos that need to be updated that support anything that happened during the quarter are done, and working towards our disclosure committee meeting, which I sort of own the presentation. So today we had a meeting with the whole team, to say, okay, we need, this information. Is there any information we need to disclose to the disclosure committee? When can we have this by? We need to get this to our chief accounting officer by a certain date so he can review it. So it's really just making sure that the timeline is being adhered to. And then obviously, when the numbers get closed and consolidated, my team then takes the information and populates the financial statements with the statement of cash flow, the P&L, the income, the balance sheet, the equity roll forward, and we work closely with the consol and controllers teams just to make sure everything makes sense. If we see something that doesn't look right, whether a lot of times it's in the cash flow, which is still a very manual process. A lot of the stuff is much more automated, but the cash flow is very manual. So we work very closely with the team to understand, the non-cash activity or, changes and how we've accounted for things. So that is something we do as we're preparing the financial statements. Then, we ultimately get a draft one of the 10Q, which will be this, Q2 10Q. We send that out to the whole finance organization, to our CEO, CFO. Doesn't really get detail reviewed at that level by draft one, because we know that there's still tax needs to be worked on. There's still adjustments and adjusting entries. And then it just becomes that cycle of, okay, we're going to send out a new draft. We try to send about 3 drafts before we finalize for the audit committee. But within that, there's definitely a lot of churn in numbers changing. And when a number change in the P&L, it has ripple effects into the financial statement footnotes. It has ripple effects into the MD&A. A lot of, balance sheet changes will change the statement of cash flow. So a lot of it for about a week and a half is, just ensuring everything has been booked correctly. And when there are changes made, ensuring that it's flowing to all of the relevant sections of the filing. And then we file the first week in August. And, so end to end, it's a little over a month, but I'd say about 2 of the weeks is really crunch time where we have financial information. And our goal is always, before we even get to the quarter, we've rolled forward the prior quarter so that we have a good clean base. So we do as much as we can ahead of time so that we're not in that scramble. But no matter how much you plan, things always, come up and change, and, best laid plans.
So when you're working with across so many teams, especially in this like rigorous time, is there like ever misconceptions or myths people from not your team think about you or like your team, what you're doing?
Yes, I mean, in my career as a whole, I will say, in my experience at my current company, everybody is we're a very lean, small company. So everybody kind of knows everybody and is willing to help. There are the certain people that you have to kind of nudge them and say, we need, FP&A, we need you to review this, revenue section. And is this correct? But definitely in my career, there are people that are very busy with their day job. This is not their day job. This is just something extra. So you have to be very respectful of people's time. And the way we try to get around that and have not come across as, asking for things late and being very, expecting things done, in the turn of a dime. Try to have a clear expectation, send out a clear timeline. This is very important in the 10K process because that involves a lot of parties. And, while it might seem a little elementary, we have a call in November and we're like, okay, we want to do as much as we can in December. We have this whole business section that is drafted, not by the accountants, it's really by the business with legal input, with FP&A input. And we need you to look at this, before the Christmas holiday, because once everybody comes back, it's going
People,
to be hard.
yeah,
And some people listen, and some people still wait until after the Christmas holiday. And, you just have to be respectful and appreciative, but still say that you need the
it's a
information.
push. Yes.
Yeah, it's a push. And like I said, this is not their day job. So you have to just keep that in the back of your head that they're not working on this full time
They would
right
not
now.
understand your side of the things. Yes.
Yes, but most people, being in their roles for a period of time do understand where we're
Adaptive.
coming from, and
And like
it's
the
just the way
people
you
who
handle
are
it.
not completely like in this space at all, like from an SEC reporter, when I think of it from an outsider, like what is something you constantly have to tell them, like the myths you debrief, like, hey,
I
we do
know
this.
that this is, seems like for example, updating the risk factors. Our legal team really owns the risk factors, but my team is the project manager for the whole document. So while we don't own and we're not subject matter experts in every piece of the document, we own the end-to-end document. So we have to
Yes.
make sure things are running. So legal will say, treasury, can you please look at this risk factor about treasury? And treasury will be like, nothing's changed, leave it the same. And legal will be like, no, but there's been a lot of activity in the markets and I think we need to update this. And so there's a push and pull. And then my role, my team being in the middle, has to try to ensure that legal is getting what they need while treasury is not recreating the wheel. That's
Yes.
sort of the balance for sure.
That's nice. Um, well, when a new SEC disclosure or requirement comes out, whether cybersecurity, tariffs, ESG, or something else, like what's the actual process drafting it and getting it into the file?
Sure. So what happens is an ASU comes out. In every function I've been in SEC reporting, we have an ASU tracker where somebody on the team needs to update every quarter as there a new ASU is issued. If there's a new ASU issued, it generally is not go into effect for a year or plus.
Mm.
But our job is to really understand. Well, we have to disclose it in the document that there is a new ASU, and generally at that early point in the game, we would say we're evaluating the impact on our company. Sometimes we'll say we don't expect it to have a material impact if we're certain of that, but we need to really wait until we've assessed it. So then we have our team will look into the ASU, understand what they're asking for, try, at the point where it starts getting implemented, companies with different year ends who might have implemented it, in advance. So we're able to, or early adopters where we're not early adopting. So we'll look in, we have a software that's, helps us with benchmarking. It's a research tool, and we'll use that to see what other companies are disclosing. We will read any Big Four interpretations, what they're saying about it. They always seem to give a lot of good examples. And then we will always put a memo together saying, this is the new standard, this is how it applies to us, this is how it's going to change the way we account for something, this is the new disclosure. And that gets reviewed all the way up, to our chief accountant. And then it would go to our auditors before we have even, adopted the standard and get approval on everything, get all of the disclosures signed off, get the new accounting treatment signed off. And generally, the FASB does give you a year plus for most updates to be put into a play. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I understand that while the most filing deadlines are fixed and the numbers keep moving, what's the closest you've come to a genuinely difficult quarter? Like, what got you through it?
Sure. So, as when I was at my first SEC reporting role, it was, very early in my career, and there was not as much technology. So it seemed like then it was always a fire drill because there was no way to do as good benchmarking. Everything was slower. There was no AI, which, now AI has only been a couple of years. But I'd say probably at one of my jobs, one of the companies I worked for, there was something that was brought up like the day before we were due to file that could have potentially been an accounting error. And we had to get our auditors on the phone. We had to get our SOX team, our risk and controls team on the phone. And we were hashing out, are we going to have to make this change? And as I said earlier, when you make a change, it has a ripple effect. And there's always a chance a late change something's going to be done incorrectly. That's just the way things work. Luckily, we all concluded in the end that it was not an error, and we were able to document it and sign off on the way the financials were. But that was probably my closest experience, being a day before filing, which might not sound like a lot, but you sort of need to be locked and loaded. You want to be locked and loaded a couple of days before. So that was probably one of the closest calls, but luckily I've never had anything that has been
That has stressed you out so much.
major
Yes.
catastrophe. Yes.
I think you guys must be on the edge during these times that anything can pop up and we really need to be hands on.
Yes, and I find I'd rather file earlier because no
Way
matter how many days you have, the more days you have, the more stress
the
that
most
something's
slack
going to
it's going
pop.
to be in. It's somebody's.
Yes, somebody's going to find something, or a subsequent event is going to pop up. You're like, I just want
True.
to file before something happens that I have to now add a whole new disclosure.
True. How do you like stay on the top of SEC security trends, like through CPE or peer research? What are the areas you're most closely watching right now? How do you make sure disclosures are ahead of where attention is heading?
Sure. So I definitely like to listen to most of the Big Four. They have quarterly webcasts that are free, and they give you updates on trends, and that's always good. I also there's another organization that my company gets us a membership for, and twice a year they have SEC updates, which me and my team attend either virtually or in person. Definitely try during the off quarters, between the quarters, do benchmarking for, okay, we're disclosing this, but I think there's a better way. Let's see how our peers, I'm currently in a fintech. Let's see how other fintech companies are disclosing something. This is, something that we're hearing a lot about. Should we be a little more careful in our disclosures? Should we give more information? So that's definitely how I keep up to date. I also, think it's important to always have the latest Big Four guides on, the big areas: revenue, leases. Have that on hand for when things come up, so you can make sure you have the latest and the greatest in their interpretation.
I mean, I was thinking that too, SEC reporters, like in general, do you guys have like a meetup? Do you guys have a space where you like, talk about something new, like how AI is coming in? Or throughout the years, you said like initially the work was very slow and had a very different system of doing it. So do we have a big SEC community out there which like really helps you progress through it, or it's very much independent, you keeping tap on things, or you being very proactive about how to handle every situation?
That's a really good question. And I think there is, well, it's more for technical accounting, but I'm sure there is an SEC group. It's in LinkedIn. And I want to get more involved in those because I think that's really beneficial. Because if somebody has the question, everybody probably can benefit from the answer. I have a big network of people that I've worked with that are still in
Mhm.
SEC reporting. So I will reach out, nothing, nothing confidential, but I'll just ask them, what's your
Yes.
process on how you do this? And what's your best practice on how you do this? And, I'm like, let's meet up for a drink and catch up about it. So that's sort of, I try to keep my network open for the people that I've worked with in the past because they're all very smart and bright. And a lot of them have stayed in the SEC reporting realm.
So I was wondering, like, when sometimes there are moments where your guidance is like a little gray, and you like whether it's on MD&A,
DNA.
sorry, MD&A and non-GAAP or segment judgment. How do you decide how far to take a disclosure?
That's very important, and that helps me feel though as though AI could never really take the place of an accountant, an
That's your
SEC.
own experience and your understanding, your
my
judgment calls.
my
Yeah.
yes, you need to have a human brain because I can look at the same issue and give two different answers and almost fully support both answers, and that's the part that's the challenge, and that keeps things interesting. So there's the many cut and dry questions where it's very easy to know this is how you account for it, but a lot of, for example, revenue transactions, there's so much different intricacies that not everybody has ever even seen certain revenue transactions. And when it gets to a point where we have this agreement and we're not sure, are we the principal? Are we the agent? Or who's the customer? We have, outside of our auditors, we use another big four to kind of bounce ideas off of. And we try to always have our conclusion because we don't want to go in cold and just say, what do you think? So when we get to a point where we feel like something is really gray and it's not an area we have documented a conclusion, we will reach out to that person. Also, we'll always advise, look into the Big Four guidance and see if there's excerpts that address a specific issue. Or, like I said, the basis for conclusion when talking, the principal agent thing is something that the big, FASB has had to make amendments to their accounting standard updates because a lot of it is very gray. And, without becoming too prescriptive, they want to give more guidance. So, do a lot of research, do a lot of benchmarking. There's just so much you can see in financial statements on how things are accounted for. You can understand the overall policy, but that doesn't always give you the exact answer of how they're recording things. So, it's a combination of all that. And I think a goal of mine is to really build a really comprehensive technical accounting library in my current company so that anybody who's looking at accounting, whether it be, one small accountant who's looking to book a payroll journal entry and there's this interesting situation, they can look at the guidance and then, speak with us. But I want to have a comprehensive database for our accounting team to look at. And obviously, not everything is always answered by looking at that and by talking to our team. So, really, just knowing when to reach out and ask for help. And what I think is great about my boss is he's like, if we need to ask our third party, that is okay. Because sometimes they even need to speak with somebody else. They need to go to their national office. And it's not always, something can take 3 months to decide and it seems crazy, but it can.
Yeah. I mean, when you're saying that there's so much of judgment calls, not just yours, but like seniors of yours, or they might even have to reach out somewhere. Do you like, we'll just talk about like AI because it has impacted every field, even the field which is as niche as yours, and it has so much grind which individual needs to put in. Do you think there is a future for AI here, or do you think it's always going to be in a balance, or there's going to be a limitation where it will reach?
I think AI helps in that before AI, if I was researching an issue, I would look at all the big four, look for the key term, do a Google search, try to find, an instance. AI, obviously, you ask Claude, you know, have have you ever heard of this situation? How do most companies account for it? The thing with Claude is, while great, and chat, while great,
Hallucinations. Yeah.
I've caught errors. Yes, I've said, oh, I think that was not correct. I think there was an update to the guidance, and they're like, oh yes, you're correct. So I was always, in the beginning, I was struggling with, how do I use AI ethically? And I think of it as AI is an assistant that I have, just like if I hired an assistant who's doing the research that took me hours, days to do in much less time. But you always have to, just like when somebody gives you an analysis, you always have to look at it. I always ask for the support, point me to the support, in the FASB guidance, or where does E&Y say that in their papers, and make sure I understand that. But again, I've experienced using AI, and I can ask AI, just giving it different prompts, the same question, different prompts,
Would
and it
have
gives me
different
different.
answers. Yeah, for sure.
So I know, because
It has
it's,
a long way, yeah, to go.
yes, but I think there's automation that could be done, with not like more, not really the side of the thinking and understanding the technical implications, but some of the more manual, the way we're updating. We do use a tool for our financials that's supposed to automatically update the document. But what we don't do so well is pulling the data from our trial balance, so that if there's a change made, it automatically pulls into our financial systems. And there's been a lot of limitations as to why, but I think over the next few years, AI is going to enable that to be, so there's less rework and checking, and ability to spend time on more meaningful things.
And I'm just asking this not from your present work or previous work perspective, but have you heard around in the space of SEC reporters? Are there AI tools the companies themselves are building so that there's a security clearance there, or they are sourcing out these AI tools like Claude or anything in their system? Like, I'm trying to understand, is there like a trend of people or companies incorporating their own AI system for SEC reporting? Or it's better for them to just still use the generic AI tools. Individually, SEC reporters are trying to outsource their own work. Like,
Yeah, I think
in your,
currently,
yeah,
I don't know if I'm answering this correctly, but I think currently we are outsourcing. We're using Claude. We just got the enterprise license for Claude. Prior to that, we had Copilot. Now we have both. We have a tool that we use that has AI capabilities built into it. We used it before AI even existed. It's the tool we use for benchmarking and disclosures. And now there's an AI built into it, which is not great yet, but I think they're making strides. And then there's even another company that came to us that our FP&A, I'm sorry, our investor relations team uses, and they have a really good AI feature that is a little more honed in than, say, Claude on financial statement preparation. And we actually have a trial access to it, and I think it's a really great tool. So I don't think at this point we're building in-house, at least for the SEC reporting, possibly for the consolidations. They're looking to build some in-house AI tools, but right now we're sort of outsourcing, specifically for my area.
I think for me, from what I understood, like the generic AI does a lot of work for me and like for you, the way you said, but it definitely hallucinates a lot. So I was, so we did come across like tools like Finrep AI, which is the podcast host. They are very specialized in the niche of SEC reporting. So I think there are tools which are getting built around that, and that might be the future. I'm assuming. Obviously, you are the user, and you would know more, but I think this is the kind of space I think we're heading towards, and I just wanted to bring that point out.
Okay.
But like as we move forward, do you think like titles like CPA, would they have the same importance they had before? Like when you must be in your career, that would be a big thing. But as you're moving forward, do you think in general the education, the certifications, the titles, do they have value? Would they hold value? What do you think we're heading towards? Like someone who's coming up or who are trying to get their license, where they should focus just on the certifications, or there's like a balance you're trying to reach?
I think that, again, I'm biased because I am a CPA, and I think it holds a lot of value. I think that, you know, I got getting a license is always something that is looked highly upon. And it means that you now, when I went, we didn't have to go for 5 years, but now for accounting, you have to go to school, you have to get your master's, you have to take the CPA exam, which is very difficult. You have to stay current, to be an actively active CPA. And I think that it will still be valuable, even if you don't do accounting. I just went back to an accounting event at my alma mater, and one of the professors was saying that accounting is really the language of business. So I think that it is, and a lot of people, my friends who have children in college, are like, I'm telling them to minor in accounting because they might want to major in marketing or major in management. But I think those areas, without having a license, are a little more concerning on what AI is taking over, because there's something to be said about having a specialized license. I'm not in tax accounting, but that's another area where it's
Yes.
very complicated. And, tax accountants generally also have their CPAs. So I would like to think that it is always going to be a career. It might change in the way it looks. There might be the lower level roles. I'm not sure how that's going to work because everybody has to start somewhere, but a lot of that might be taken over by AI. So they're going to have to just in the state of the way the world is going in general, I think a lot of careers are going to have to look at how they're going to start, kids out of college to learn and begin. And what I said to my daughter, she's in high school, but AI is great, but if you don't have the basis behind it and you don't really understand what you're looking at, it's not
How would
great.
you instruct it? How would you instruct even what to do?
Exactly. So I'm like, I might use it for work, but I've had so much experience. So while you can use AI to double check what you're doing, you should really on your own try to learn it. And I think that applies in every aspect of careers and life.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people who'll be watching this are people maybe in their early careers. So this is like a great advice. Just to wrap up the conversation, the final thing I would want to ask is like people who are watching, like as you say, we need to be updated with the trends. And I know you like gave me some resources, but like a final say on like resources, newsletters, community, how to be on top of things. Like just some because you say to follow a lot of big four channels, which would help you like understand what's going on and also help you draft. So like, can you just like wrap me up like from the final resources and that's
Definitely, I think it's really like LinkedIn is an amazing resource that, only in the past few years have I utilized it in a way where you could find groups that, people share the same work product as you, like we were saying with SEC. I think there are organizations where they might have, meetings where they get together and they discuss things. I think that's really important. I think going to conferences for, different tools, even if it's not, specifically an accounting conference, an accounting tool that we're using for our SEC filing, you meet a ton of other accountants there that are doing the same job as you, and you get to talk to each other. I really think networking is like one of the best ways to grow your knowledge and grow your career, because you never know. I got two of my jobs through connections,
yes.
not just through submitting my resume, but connections really do play a major.
Who valued you, who see the value in you and see like where you've been and going to.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to be proactive. Don't be afraid to join organizations. And just, like still have some connections with people I work with at EMY. I still have connections at the FASB. It's just good to stay in touch with people.
It's good, thank you.